Hello, my name is Jasmine Soto, and today we're going to be talking about one way that educational interpreters are ranked on their level of qualification in regards to interpreting in the classroom. The competency and quality of an educational interpreter's skill are determined by an evaluation called the Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment, or the EIPA. According to the article, Skill Levels of Educational Interpreters Working in Public Schools, that was published in the 1999 Journal of Deaf Studies and in the Deaf Education edition, they specified that the Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment, or the EIPA, is a process designed to evaluate the skills of educational interpreters in a classroom setting. The EIPA is not limited to any one sign language or system or any one particular grade level. The EIPA acts as a direct representation of the interpreter's ability to convey and relay academic information accurately and appropriately to different levels of students in the public education system. This means that matching tone and vocabulary are just as important as matching the accuracy of the content for the students to properly understand the information that is being taught. However, the EIPA has been a popular topic of controversy, as many interpreters and individuals believe that the evaluation is not thorough enough to determine if an interpreter is actually ready to enter the educational interpreting field. The EIPA functions on what's called a level pass system, where there's 5 levels, and each individual that is attempting the evaluation has to obtain a certain level in order to be considered to interpret in the educational system. This differs greatly from other certification evaluations, such as the National Interpreter Certification, or the NIC, that works on a pass-fail system. So the following levels are the levels that are associated with the EIPA and some of the qualification feedback that you would get from that evaluation. First up, we have level 1, which is the beginner. An individual that obtains this level on the EIPA is not recommended for classroom interpreting at all. An individual that has taken the EIPA and has achieved a level 1 demonstrates very limited signed vocabulary with frequent errors in production. At times, their production may be incomprehensible, and grammatical structures tend to be non-existent. This individual is only able to communicate very simple ideas and demonstrates great difficulty comprehending signed communication. Sign production lacks prosody and use of space for the vast majority of the interpreted message, and this is why this individual has not been recommended for classroom interpreting in the public education system. Next up, we have level 2, which is called the advanced beginner. An individual that obtains this level on the EIPA is also not recommended for any type of classroom interpreting. An individual that obtains a level 2 on the EIPA might see that their qualification feedback says that they demonstrated only basic signed vocabulary and that those limitations interfered with their ability to communicate. They might say that the lack of fluency and sign production errors are typical and that they are often interfere with the communication of the individual. The interpreter may often hesitate in signing as if they are searching for vocabulary, and frequent errors in grammar are apparent, although basic signed sentences appear intact. More complex grammatical structures are typically difficult for this individual, and the individual is able to read signs at a word level and simple sentence level, but complete or complex sentences are often require repetition and repairs. They might have some use of prosody and space issues, but the ones that they do have are inconsistent and often incorrect. And this is why an individual that obtains a level 2 is not recommended for any type of classroom interpreting in the public education system. The third level that you can obtain on the EIPA is called intermediate. This level tends to be the median level that the majority of states, counties, and districts use to say that these individuals, this is the bare minimum that they accept in order to be an educational interpreter, and the EIPA evaluation states that an interpreter who has achieved this level needs continued supervision and that they should be required to participate in continuing education in interpreting. An individual who has obtained a level 3 on the EIPA often demonstrates knowledge of basic vocabulary but will lack the vocabulary for more technical, complex, or academic topics. The individual is able to sign in a fairly fluent manner, using some consistent prosody, but the pacing is still slow, with infrequent pauses for a vocabulary or complex structures. Sign production may show some errors, but generally it will not interfere with their communication. Grammatical production may still be incorrect, especially for some complex structures, but it is in general intact for routine and simple language. This individual comprehends signed messages but may need repetition and assistance, and their voiced translation often lacks depth and subtleties of the original message. An individual at this level would be able to communicate very basic classroom content, but may inaccurately interpret complex information, resulting in a message that is not always clear. This is why this interpreter at this level will be recommended for academic interpreting. However, it is stated again that they need continued supervision because the interpretations that they are providing do not match complex academic topics. Next up, we have level 4, which is called the Advanced Intermediate. The EIPA evaluation has determined that an individual at this level would be able to convey much of the classroom content. However, they may have difficulty with complex topics or rapid turn-taking. But overall, this individual is considered prepared to begin their educational interpreting journey in the public education system. An individual that has obtained a level 4 on the EIPA might have feedback that states that they demonstrated broad use of vocabulary with signed production that is generally correct. They may demonstrate good strategies for conveying information when a specific sign is not in their vocabulary. Grammatical constructions are generally clear and consistent. However, complex information may still pose occasional problems. But their prosody is good, and they tend to have the appropriate facial expressions most of the time. They may still have some difficulties with the use of facial expressions in complex sentences and adverbial non-manual markers, though. Fluency may deteriorate when rate or complexity of communication increases. They use space consistently most of the time, but complex constructions or extended use of discourse cohesion may still pose problems. Comprehension of most signed messages at a normal rate is good, but the translation may lack some complexity of the original message. An individual at this level would be able to convey much of the classroom content, but may have difficulty with complex topics or rapid turn-taking. However, overall, this individual, as stated before, will be considered prepared for educational interpreting in the public education system. And finally, we have level 5, which an interpreter who achieves this level will be considered advanced, and they are considered to be at a level that is capable of clearly and accurately conveying the majority of interactions within the classroom. So basically, this individual is completely or as prepared as they could be to enter educational interpreting in the public education system. An interpreter who has reached the level 5, the advanced stage of the EIPA, will receive feedback that looks something like where they say that they have demonstrated broad and fluent use of vocabulary with a broad range for strategies or for communicating new words and concepts. Their sign production errors are minimal and never interfere with comprehension. Their prosody is correct for grammatical, non-manual markers and effective purposes. Complex grammatical constructions are typically not an issue. Comprehension of signed messages is very good, and communicating all the details from the original message. So overall, this person has achieved the highest level of the EIPA that they can, and they are basically as close as they can be to ready to enter the interpreting field. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that the information provided today gave you a little more insight into the differing levels of the educational interpreting qualifications, in particular with the EIPA, and what that feedback might look like for individual interpreters that are going to take the EIPA.